Hi guys, welcome back to the Cupcake Jemma channel. I'm Dane and today I'm going to show you my version of an absolute classic, the Boston cream pie cake. Now this is said to have been created in 1856 by an Armenian French chef in the Parker House Hotel in Boston. I'm just going to put my little spin on it. It's basically 2 sponges of vanilla cake and then it's sandwiched with pastry cream, also vanilla, and then a chocolate ganache on top. I'm going to keep it relatively the same, but I'm just going to construct it a little bit differently so it's a bit neater and more streamlined. So the first thing we're going to do is start with the pastry cream. It's 450 grams of whole milk going into a saucepan. Once that's in, I'm just going to put in 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Whoop. Pop it everywhere. This is the vanilla that you can get from cupcakejemma.com. It's nice and seedy, thick, and it's the really good tasting stuff. So I'm just gonna set this on a medium heat to get that going, and then I'm gonna crack some eggs. We need 1 whole egg and 3 egg yolks. So the eggs are cracked. Now to the eggs, I'm gonna add some corn flour, 26 grams, because this isn't like a regular custard. It's pastry cream, which is thickened with corn flour or flour to make sure that when we cut into the cake, it stays where it is. And then I've got 90 grams of caster sugar. Now you need to act fast when the sugar hits the eggs, because if you leave it too long without whisking it, it can sort of burn the eggs and you'll get little bits of yolk in there. You want to whisk the egg mixture until it's nice and pale and thick, a little bit like this. So it's not super thick, but it's definitely lighter in color. And you can do it with an electric whisk if you want. I just like doing it by hand. The milk is ready, it's nice and warm. It's got like vanilla in there, and what we're gonna do now is just temper the eggs with it. So I'm just pouring a little bit onto the eggs and whisking at the same time. This will just make sure that they both come to the same temperature around about the same time, and evenly as well. Once you've whisked in all the milk, all we're gonna do is pop this mixture back into the saucepan, pop it on a medium heat, and then continue to whisk it until it's thickened. You wanna cook it out for about 1 or 2 minutes afterwards, just to cook out the corn flour, and then it should be ready. Pastry cream is nice and thick now, and all that's left to do is sieve it so that we get rid of any lumps in this mixture. So just pass it through a sieve that is set over a bowl. I like to use a metal bowl just because it's thinner than a glass one and it doesn't retain the heat as much, so it cools down a bit quicker. We're gonna put it in the fridge, but it just helps a little bit. And also, metal bowls just feel like super pro, you know? So just push it through the sieve. And look, you can see like, maybe a little bit in the sieve, there's just those tiny eggy bits that we don't want in the final pastry cream. Don't forget to just scrape the underneath of the sieve because there's lots of pastry cream underneath there. And then what we'll do is just put some cling film straight over the top, close to the pastry cream so that it doesn't form a skin. And we'll just leave that to one side to cool whilst we get on with the sponge. And what we need for that is a mixer, and Jemma is here to give me a hand.
I've got one right here for you.
Thank you so much.
It matches my dress.
And a yellow, yes, perfect. So, I need some ingredients. These are already prepared on the back for me. And what we're gonna do is start with some butter. So this vanilla sponge recipe is our new one that you have seen Jemma make before a couple of weeks ago, and it's super delicious. We've got 140 grams of soft unsalted butter, and we've got 175 grams of caster sugar going in. And what makes the sponge extra delicious is the combination of oil and buttermilk in the mixture. So we've got 60 grams of vegetable oil going in as well. And we'll just set the mixer down on to a medium speed and beat this for around 2 to 3 minutes. Butter mixture is nice and creamy. Now we're gonna add 3 large free-range eggs. Just one at a time, beating very well in between each addition. About 20 seconds should do it. That's been about 20 seconds. We'll add the next one, and you can tell when the mixture looks nice and kind of homogenized and not split. But if it splits a little bit, don't worry, because once we put the flour in, it will all be okay. Once the eggs have had about a minute to mix through, I'm just going to stop the mixer, give it a tiny bit of a scrape down, and then we'll add the dry ingredients. So I've got 200 grams of self-raising flour. I'm going to sieve this in just to get rid of any lumps. And then I'm also going to add a pinch of salt, and we'll sieve that through. And then we'll pop it back on the mixer and just mix it on a low speed just to fold that flour through gently. Once the flour is nearly mixed through, we're going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract because obviously we're making a Boston cream pie cake and the main flavour is vanilla. So we've got to get that in there. And then 60 grams of buttermilk. Just pop that in and fold it through until it's almost all folded through. A little bit like this. We'll switch it off, flick the hood up, take the paddle out and the bowl out, and then I'm just going to finish folding this by hand. You don't want to overwork any sort of cake batter, and this is looking perfect. It's nice and fluffy, light, and it's like the quickest sponge to make ever, but it has the most incredible crumb. That's what it should look like. So for this recipe, I'm going to be baking the cakes in 7-inch cake tins, like this, just sandwich tins. And I'm gonna spray it as usual with a little bit of Releaser cake spray. You can do it with butter and flour, but this is super easy and super quick to grease the tins with. Then we'll just divide it equally between the tins. And I've already preheated the oven to 175 degrees Celsius. Now, I forgot to tell you this at the start, I'm very sorry, but if you know, you know. You can purchase all of the PDF recipes that we have baked here on the channel as PDFs. So you can download them from cupcakejemma.com, and at the beginning of that recipe, it will tell you in order to preheat the oven so you won't get halfway through the recipe like me and just have to wait 5 minutes for the oven to preheat. But listen, get the PDFs because they're beautiful. Now, I've got an offset palette knife and I'm just gonna level out the sponges in here. Only take a second. And then we'll pop them in the oven and they're gonna bake for around 24 minutes until you push on the top and it springs back. They'll be done. Boom. My vanilla cakes are out of the oven, they are cooled down completely, and I'm just gonna trim them with a cake leveler. I've got this on number 5, because I just wanna take off that top layer of sponge, just so that when we cut into the cake, it's nice and level, and you get those kind of crisp layers of the cake and the pastry cream. And also you can see that nice yellow vanilla sponge inside. It's absolutely delicious, the sponge. It's super moist, a little bit tangy because of the buttermilk, and it keeps really well, especially because we're gonna refrigerate this cake so the creme pack can set. Of which, I've already whipped in a stand mixer because it was in the fridge. It sets a little bit, so I've whipped it up just to get it nice and creamy again. And then what I'm gonna build it in is this cake pan. Now you can do it in the cake tins you baked it in, if you've got 7-inch sandwich tins, because we want it to be the same size as the cake. But I've got one that's a little bit taller here. And I've just put a round of greaseproof in the bottom. And then what I'm gonna do is just put 1 layer of cake into the tin. And then I fashioned this little band out of acetate. So it's just a strip of acetate. This is actually, I took from downstairs in the bakery. When we do logos, it has the fondant on them, so I asked Rosie if I could steal some of this. Reuse, right? So I've just put a little bit of tape to seal the join, and I'm just gonna pop it into the cake tin, and then just shimmy it down the side of the cake. Now, what I want to do with this is make it really tight, because when the cake bakes, it kind of shrinks a little bit. It's inevitable, so it's never going to be exactly the same size as the tin. But if I do it really tightly against the cake, we can form a tight join, like so. And then I've got this. So now I'm just going to put another little bit of tape on here to seal it. And we've got kind of like a makeshift cake ring. You can get adjustable cake rings, but it saves buying one, and you can just use the tin that you already had, but just put a little bit of plastic in. So I'm just going to pop this back in here, and then we'll build the cake up. Cake is in, and now I'm just going to put the pastry cream on top. Put all of it on. You want a nice thick layer. And then what I'm going to do is just level it out a little bit with a cranked palette knife. I mean, you could kind of shimmy this around and it would probably level itself, but just give it a little helping hand with the palette knife. And why I wanted to do the acetate around the side is because when you reveal it, well, I'll show you when we take it out the fridge, but it just gets those nice clean layers. So that is that. And then we'll just put the next layer of sponge on top. Make sure that it's upside down so you get the bit that was baking on the bottom of the tin on the top, so it's nice and flat. And we'll just ease this into here. There we go. Push it down and make it nice and level. And then the next thing we're going to do is just finish it off with some ganache. So I've got some melted chocolate here, just 90 grams of 54% chocolate and 45 grams of butter. To that, I'm going to add 45 grams of double cream to just cool it down. Give that a mix around to make a really nice smooth ganache. And just adding the butter and the cream rather than just all cream makes it a little bit more softer when you eat it when it's come to room temperature. And that's it. All we'll do is pour this on top. Okay, that is it. I'm just going to tilt it a little bit just to make it level. And that's the Boston cream pie cake done. It's going to go in the fridge for about 3 hours, but I'm going to leave it in overnight and I'll come back tomorrow so we can taste it together. This feels very familiar. I've said this before. Like the cheesecake. It's going in the fridge. Welcome back to the next day. My Boston cream pie cake has been chilling in the fridge overnight and it's time to cut into it. So I've just got a little, thing to, it's a loose bottom tin, so I can put it on and just slide down the tin like this. This looks great. You can see those 3 distinct layers of the sponge, the pastry cream, and the chocolate on top. So I'm just gonna move this to one side so we can take it off of the base, like so. And we'll slide it off the paper, and then we'll reveal the acetate. There we go. Beautiful. And look, you can just push that little bit of sponge up there. It's quite a little bit jiggly, this one, but trust me, it is quite sturdy. Once you cut into it and cut a slice, it's not going anywhere. So I'm just going to heat the knife up with the blowtorch. It's easier to get through the chocolate because the chocolate is harder than the cake and the pastry cream as well. When you cut through, you won't kind of smush it all out of the side. So basically I'm gonna cut through the chocolate first and then the cake. And you could do this over a gas hob or just run it under some hot water instead. I've got this, so we'll just go in. Okay, and now we'll cut down into the actual cake itself. which will be the easier part because we've already cut through that slightly hard chocolate. And I should be able to bring out a really nice slice of Boston cream pie cake. A small slice at that, but hey, all the best things come in small packages, and that is this cake. Look at that, the perfect slice. I almost don't want to eat it, but I need to try it with you. Okay. Just lay it down. Okay. You know what? The cake is cold, but in this sense, I don't mind cold cake because I wouldn't want warm pastry cream. And it's the perfect balance. It's a little bit sweet, but that chocolate gives it a little bit of an edge. The pastry cream and the vanilla sponge just has that huge punch of vanilla in there. Vanilla and chocolate, it's a winning combination. And the sponge is so light and fluffy, but the crumb is compact enough that it doesn't make the cake dry. You know, sometimes when you chomp into a sponge cake and the crumbs just go everywhere, these crumbs stay nice and neat. Look at that. It's absolutely delicious. And the sponge stays moist in the fridge as well. Sometimes when you put sponge in the fridge, it dries out. Not this one. This is so good. This is my take on a Boston cream pie cake. I hope you love it. I hope that you make it. And if you do, don't forget to share your recipes on Instagram, #Cupcake Jemma and Crumbs and Doilies. And I want to see you make this Boston cream pie cake. There we go. See you next time for another recipe.